See, this is kind of what I mean. Like how this person is playing, like you're not gonna get better this way. Like you're just casually just meandering around. You queue up the solos, right? And you play kind of scary. And I'm like, what is the point of playing solos like this? You might as well have just played with randoms, like trios or quads or something like that. Because it's not like you're experimenting with this. Hell, you're not even reading the map properly. That person shot above you. You looked straight at the middle slash bottom of the building. You're sitting here crouching half the time. Shooting at this person was the worst thing you could have did. Like you gotta get active. You can't be afraid. It's okay if you die. You learn from it. Playing like this is how I started out playing Warzone, except we was always in bio in the fucking second or third story. I think it was the second room. And we would just be sitting there in the corner until the gas would push us forward and shit. And then we would move into where he's at right now, which I think is Industries. And then we would sit on the bottom floor of that room and then wait for the gas to push us further into like prison. Then we would sit in the prison showers. Where the fuck did he come from? We would just sit there until the guys pushed us forward, and then we would basically at that point be relatively in the end game. You see what I'm saying? And with the people who I was playing with, always was sitting here trying to tell me is like, you know, we're playing to win. This is like my first few times like actually playing the game. I didn't know no better. I didn't know nothing either. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I wasn't looking at nobody's channels and looking at no videos or nothing like that. This is just the way it was. So I just figured this is how everybody was playing the shit. Sometimes it's a work for us and sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes we'd win. But the thing that I noticed once I started going off on my own and playing Warzone just by myself, I started understanding that there's more to the game than just simply sitting in a fucking corner. And I started to honestly see myself improve as a result of it. You can see this in some of my the first Call of Duty Warzone, I have like 50 videos of those. And I gradually started playing more and more aggressively. I'm not what I am now, but I definitely was playing way better than I was then. Any advice that you could give to like a newer player playing this shit is like, dog, don't be afraid. Just make a move with confidence and with conviction. Like real shit. Like if you die, learn from it. Real shit. If you need to watch videos, watch videos. I myself have been quick with my hands, like with my fingers and shit. So when it comes to doing like movements and the slide canceling and then aiming and shooting, I'm not the best and I'm not perfect. And oftentimes frames my aim be looking like fighting with somebody with possession over the controller. I oftentimes can outplay people because I can run around, move around, aim and all this other stuff while I'm shooting at people. And sometimes I can be very accurate. Like all of my shit is just through me playing the game. No videos, no nothing. I just played the game span of since Call of Duty Warzone 1. I started Call of Duty Warzone 1 really fucking late. Like, because I really did not want to play the game at first. New players just don't play like that one guy played, because you will never get better that way. Because at that point, you might as well play. Because see, like a guy like this, he will kill you 10 out of 10 times. Experience and repetition is going to be your best teacher. Basically, getting out there and actually getting into fights and trying stuff out. If you want to get into the firing range, I don't even have auto tac sprint on. I go, honestly, just with auto sprint, just because I feel like it helps me get into my ADS a little bit quicker than it would if I was like tac sprinting and then going into a shot. I could be wrong by that, but that's just how I felt, at least in relation to past Call of Duties when thinking about Warzone. And then again, just kind of just practicing with the sliding and stuff, and then just mixing this in with the shooting, and then just tweaking your settings. I use regular settings and stuff, and obviously these are standstill targets, so you'd have to really go and actually practice. But I feel like the typical person would usually buy the game and you'd have access to multiplayer. Multiplayer is a really good place to really practice this shit. Don't play on hardcore because people will die in relatively 1 or 2 shots. If you're trying to practice for something like Warzone where they have more HP, you're gonna want to get really good at understanding tracing them as they move around and shoot, and finding out what's best for you. From the optics that you use on a gun, to whether or not you want to use optics or you want to use the iron sights on a gun, to understanding the type of gun that you're using, to more or less just figuring out again how you want to go about like approaching certain gunfights. Like for me, I started out kind of more or less shooting and then going into a jump kind of like somewhere in the midst of the fight. If I was like shooting someone and we were like trading bullets, and then I would kind of jump to try and get a headshot, so that way my damage multiplier would activate and hopefully it would help me get the kill. Around the time frame of Modern Warfare 2 2022, I started to incorporate the drop shot, which was a mixed bag because you got to be careful with the drop shot, because typically people aim at your chest, and when you crouch, you're putting your head to where your chest is at, therefore amplifying your enemy's damage. With the drop shotting, you know, you just kind of do that. And I don't use a claw method when I do this stuff, and this is kind of what I mean by, like, I am not an advanced player by any stretch of the imagination. I don't use the claw method when I do this. What I do with my fingers is very clumsy on my controller, okay? I hold the controller like regularly, like I don't even know how to even really properly explain it. Middle fingers literally are on the back of my controller, not doing a damn thing. My thumbs are obviously on my analogs. My right thumb does a majority of all of my button presses, and my index finger is the thing that is, my two index fingers is the one things that are holding both my L2 and my R2, and that's left trigger and right trigger for those on Xbox. If I'm shooting somebody and then they strafe to like the left or right, I risk it all. I've said multiple times before, I wish I could learn the claw method, but I have a problem with using my other fingers well, and I'll just clumsily get by doing this other stuff. But you can see, because I went on a solo run and I got 17 kills and I got 18 kills, and I'm still confident as ever in every gunfight despite my clumsiness with my fingers, that experience is really legitimately the best teacher that you can possibly have. People can tell you how to properly do this. You have to make it a habit, really, in our reality, to really like kind of compete for the most part. When I do drop shots, if someone moving to the left or right, I have to complete the drop shot, and then I have to get my thumb back to the analog to finish shooting them. I've been actively telling myself that I need to stop drop shotting because it really is just inefficient for me. Bunny hopping is just more or less shooting, and it's really with the bunny hopping thing, that's more or less all, unless you can do the claw method, that is all holding down L2 and just moving the analog left and right while you spam X and you have your index finger on the right trigger and just shooting. That's literally all that is. You just keep that bitch at a level and you just try to match where the guy is as you're jumping. It's relatively simple, at least I feel like it is, but it could just be me just already knowing how to do that right off rip. That's why it feels simpler for me, whereas someone else doing the claw method might just literally be second nature for them at this point, because that's always how they've played the game. I don't play the game that way. So for me, that is difficult, and for what I do might be really difficult for someone else who just doesn't have any motor skills whatsoever. You can maybe get by with some of your gunfights with not having that much motor skills as long as your aim is okay. Very minimum, it would be in your best interest to learn strafing back and forth and rotating your analogs in like accordance to what you're like seeing on your screen. You know what I mean? When you're strafing left, you want to have if you're strafing left, you want to be pushing your analog to the right, roughly, depending where the guy is. So if he's like dead center, like right here, if you're going left, you want to be moving your right analog to the right. If you're moving left and the guy's to your left, you also want to be moving your right analog to the left so you can stay centered there. And you're mixing that in with just shooting the guy. I think that's kind of what they mean by like rotational aim assist as well. That's kind of how I've interpreted it, and that's kind of what's worked for me. Now obviously it just makes the most sense, right? That's just what keeps you on target. Now the difficult part is you have to imagine a target that's not just sitting still. They're moving back and forth, so you have to keep this with them sometimes. And I don't know how people get it to just stick on them like that to where they can just, now obviously people have modded controllers and stuff, and I guess that really helps them with kind of making slight adjustments. I am not good with making slight adjustments. You'll see in many of my videos where I am going all over the place exactly like this, shooting. Just don't be so quick to move your right analog, and just kind of be more or less focused on your movement with your left analog while you're doing this stuff. The most important part is understanding what works for you. The same way with like when you go into an engagement, what is instinctively, when you start learning your motor skills, I'm talking to the people here, if it wasn't clear, I'm talking to the people who have basically zero motor skills, and you may be interested in knowing like how to do this stuff here. Figure out what is your typical thing, like what is easiest for you, right? Is it strafing left and right? Because if you're strafing left and right, understand this is like the one that's the least evasive, unless you're using like a weapon that has a lot of mobility. For someone drop shotting, you want to be able to read and react to what they're doing as quickly as possible. Obviously with things like bunny hopping, they throw off your aim quite a bit from you jumping in the air, being in the air and then landing. You can see the optics kind of rocking a bit, so it's going to throw off your aim. You're going to be a little bit higher or lower, and this could be a good thing and a bad thing. It could be a good thing because you'll randomly sometimes hit the head, And sometimes if they're on the ground, you might be jumping as they go to the ground, and you're missing shots as they might be hitting you, which therefore could be the reason why it is that you end up dying. And everything is situational. You never know what your opponent is really going to do until you're actually in the engagement. It's really all about being able to read and react properly. My best advice is to go into multiplayer and play regular core modes where you can get into a lot of engagements. Despite its bad reputation, modes like Shipment really helped me out. Not the greatest, but being able to just shoot multiple targets in quick succession, and then understanding that they're bunny hopping, they're drop shotting, not really getting discouraged if they kill me. If they kill me, they kill me. You get another chance. That's the reason why multiplayer is the best place for this type of thing. I honestly would recommend getting in a few sessions of multiplayer right before you hop into Warzone, so that way you're kind of prepared, because then at that point you already kind of generally know, because the fights in Warzone are really no different than multiplayer. They just have more health. You are coming around the corner, and then the enemy is coming around the corner, and y'all both see each other for the first time. What you need to already have figured out is, what is my first initial reaction, right? Is it to go into bunny hopping right away, or is it to drop shot right away, or is it to just start strafing back and forth right away? You need to already kind of have that figured out in your mind to where it's second nature. Or if you're a jack of all trades, it could be literally any one of those things, or whatever it is that you see, and then you just end up doing something, and then you don't fight that motion. You just go with the flow, and you try to adjust to what your opponent is doing through your optics.